Hi everyone, so I'm talking about my reading wrap up for the month of August. I have a tendency of forgetting this, but I've been trying to like every month do my reading stats where I talk about like the books that I read, audiobooks, physical books, things like that. So for the month of August, I had read 6 physical books. I'd say like technically it's 6 physical books that I've owned, but I didn't. No, I would say like I didn't physically read them. I did listen to them on audio. So I had 6 audiobooks because I had 6 physical copies I was going through. So it's easy for me to get through them. Like I would say like when it comes to physical books, I'm very slow. Unless I'm like on a road trip where that's the only thing that's occupying my time is like a physical book. Otherwise I can get through an audiobook fairly quickly because you know there's other things I could do throughout the day. Like if I'm washing dishes, I could just listen to an audiobook. You know, if I'm playing a game or something on my iPad, it's easier for me to listen to an audiobook at that time. You know, if I'm doing something else with my hands, I can go and listen to an audiobook. If I'm going for a walk or exercising, whatever it is, audiobook. You know, it's so much easier to do that. So you can get through books quicker that way. Now, when it comes to physical, you know, actually owning a physical book, I love to own it because you don't own, you know, digital. Not really. So I like to physically own a book. But some of these books that I have, I end up reading it and I'm like, I don't really like it. So I have to donate it, you know? So I got through 6 of my physical books. I listened to 6 audiobooks within those physical books I had. I DNF'd 3 physical books. I donated 7 books, so I'm like, at least I got like 7 books off my shelves and it's gonna go to somebody else. I read ebooks. I read 13 of them. I DNF'd 3 of those ebooks. And this month I'm only gonna talk about 13 books because some of these books that I read for the month of August, I'm going to be talking about them in September. So, you know, some for a vlog and some for like a video. So the first book I'll talk about, this one I'd say is probably my favorite for this month, is the one I read at the beginning. This one here is probably one of my favorites. So I ended up getting back into Melanie Moreland. I read another book of hers, I think it was maybe like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and I just completely forgot about her. And I'm like, oh yeah, I need to get through some more Melanie Moreland. So I went into this one here because I love the cover. I thought it was really cute. So we have My Favorite Kidnapper, and I gave this 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. So we have the characters of Dante and Brianna. So there's content warning for she's a virgin heroine. There's also battery in here, assault, kidnapping, and she's drugged. So Dante is at the wedding of his goddaughter, Carolina. Oh, also I need to say that this is an age gap romance. That's another thing. He's older than her. So it's Dante's younger brother is Carolina's stepdad. So Dante is in a room and notices this beautifully designed cake and decides to eat some of the cupcakes, a part of the wedding desserts. He has a huge sweet tooth. A woman comes in and scolds him, and she ends up being the baker of the cakes. That night at the wedding, he sees her again and kisses her. He nicknames her Little Bee because her work costume had yellow and black stripes on it. So cute. I loved how he kept calling her Little Bee. I was like, oh my god, it was so cute because it kind of like I'd say resonated a little bit with me because I just recently had talked to one of my in-laws. I'd say it was my brother-in-law, and he like was talking to me. He was a little tipsy, but you know, we were celebrating a birthday, and I had told him, I said, oh yeah, I said, I have a nickname. I said, my uncles call me B. And he goes, B? And he's like, oh, I'll call you that. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I'm like, I sometimes don't like my name, you know, because Brandy gets associated with like strippers or porn stars. So, I mean, it's really, you know, it's really like my name. I'm named after liquor. And so I don't always like my name. So I will tell people, like, if you want, you can call me B. I'm fine with that. So he's like, oh, I'll call you B. So I was like, okay, that's fine. So, so he calls, the character Dove Dante calls Brianna Little B, and I was like, I like that. I thought it was really cute. So Brianna is 26 and grew up in the foster care system. She's working at a bakery to try and pay off her school debt and also trying to get her business off the ground. She's really creative when it comes to her cakes. Like, she creates these like masterpieces. Like, there's like this content creator that you see him like on TikTok, but you could see him on other things, and he creates just such beautiful art with food, just so gorgeous. And I'm fucking impressed, because like creating like artwork with cakes and different things like that, it could be tough, because you're talking about edible things that are edible. It has to look real, but it also needs to it needs to have some kind of taste to it, like people who use fondant for cakes and stuff. I don't always like fondant. It's kind of like a doughy type of thing. So there have been people who've created these like masterpieces, and I'm like, I'd hate to cut into it because it's so pretty, So she does that. She creates these like masterpiece creations for like weddings and different things like that. So Brianna's friends with Carolina, who got married. And so she's trying to pay off her debt, and the woman she works for is a fucking harpy. The woman is a terrible, terrible boss. So she meets Dante, and he makes her feel things that she wasn't expecting. She's also like exasperated at him because he's touching her stuff like at the wedding, and she's like, stop touching my cupcakes, And so he's like fascinated with her, and he's like becomes like almost like instantly like obsessed with her, because he loves her cooking. He loves her baking, and it's funny, some people will be like, oh, I bake really good, but they don't cook. And I'm like, it's kind of the same thing. So I'm like, how do you bake and then you don't cook? I'm like, it's kind of weird. So I'm like, okay. So he finds out where she works, and he goes to see her. And so she teases him and calls him old man. He's 38. I thought it was hilarious. I loved their banter where she kept calling him old man. And I'm like, he's only 38. So I'm like, he's not that old. And he took like exception to that. And he'd be like, I'm going to put you over my knee and I'm going to smack your ass, little girl. And I was just like, oh my God. So this one here I at least liked because she was at least 26. She wasn't like 18 or 20. So the age gap wasn't that deep, it wasn't that big, it's only like a 12-year age gap. So I mean, it's not that bad. Like with my husband and I, we have like I think it's like an 8-year age gap. And so he used to like call me like things like kid, and I'm like, dude, don't call me that. I fucking hate that. Don't try to act like that I'm just some immature child kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't like that. So I'm like, he learned real quick. I was like, don't call me that. I'm like, if you want to have a nickname for me, call me B or whatever it is. Just, or babe or honey or whatever it is. Don't call me kid. I'm like, it's infantilization, and I'm a female. I am all about equality between the sexes. I do not want to be superior to a man, and I don't want to be below a man. I want to be equal. I'm an equal. There are things that men do that are obviously superior to women, and there's things that women can do that are superior to men. We can have babies. Men cannot have babies. They would die, So, I mean, and honestly, they would, because people talk about like implanting, like uteruses in men's bodies. There's no way it would be able to sustain, the stuff that women have, biology. That's why we can sustain uteruses and giving birth. Men cannot do that, no matter how much you want to be a woman, it's not possible. Not scientifically possible yet. So I love the fact that with these two, it was like great banter, and it just was really funny to me, where she kind of like kept like challenging him. So he tells her he wants to keep seeing her, and she tries to avoid him by heading off to a cabin for a few days. Instead, he thwarts her plans, drugs her with a sleeping pill and whisks her off to Italy. And I was like, hence the title, My Favorite Kidnapper, because he fucking kidnaps her and takes her to Italy. And I was like, oh my God, dude. So she's mad at first, but the more time she spends with him, the more she enjoys being around him. The funniest thing I thought was like, I was like, this guy's playing chess. This guy's playing chess. Because he decides to go to her with the police saying, this different stuff to this Italian police officer. And he's like, here, tell him I kidnapped you, kind of thing. And he's like, but I will, will be in jail. I'll lose my businesses and different things like that. So she kind of like wants to say something to the police, but she also feels bad to where she's like, well, I don't want to ruin his life, kind of thing, and she's already starting to like warm up to him, even though like, deep down she's warming up to him, but she doesn't want to admit it, so he like takes her to the police and like, here, type of thing. And I was just like, dude's playing chess here, so it was a gamble for him. So I said, I love this book. I loved how the heroine refused to swear, so she would come up with these interesting terms. I also loved how she would say things back to him that would crack me up, like calling him old man. I said he loved her baked goods and her sassy mouth. I said he falls fast and hard for her. And I'm like, it was so sweet. I'm like, it was just, the banter was great. There wasn't like this huge age gap. I mean, like I said, 12 years is not that bad of an age gap, and the fact that, even though he kidnapped her, I was like, yeah, that's bad, that's bad. He was so devoted to her. He would be like, I don't care what it takes. Tell me what you need to make these cakes, because he told her like, make a cake every day. And she's like, oh, really? We can't do a cake every day. And it got to the point like in the relationship where honestly she was not baking every day, because he had to admit to himself, he goes, yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. But I just love that he was like, I'm kidnapping you so you can make me sweets. You make me sweets, make me, cakes and cupcakes and pies and all this other stuff. And it was so sweet. And I'm like, I definitely would physically own this, because it was so cute. It was such a cute story. And like I said, he falls like fast and hard for her. He told her get whatever she wanted, that he wanted to take care of her. And I'm just like, honestly, what woman wouldn't like, melt to that? You're going to have a dude who wants to like take care of you. And by whatever it is, he lives in this beautiful house in Italy. I mean, Italy's gorgeous. The food's fantastic. That from what I hear, I've never been to Italy. I would love to go. But I heard that Italian food is just phenomenal. So I would love to go to Italy one year. If I had the money to go, I would love to. I love the Italian people. I love the way their language, it's beautiful. So, I mean, I love the Italian culture. So for me, I was like, heck yeah, take me to Italy. You buy all my stuff. Fuck yeah, I would be happy to be your kidnappee. I would be happy to be in this house and all I do is make baked goods, and then he's, pretty good in bed, that type of thing. So I'm like, of course, who wouldn't want to be kidnapped? I'm like, heck yeah, sign me up for that. But yeah, it was cute. It was super cute. I really enjoyed it. I'm like, I'd probably give it 6 stars because I really liked that one a lot. There's going to be like, I think, a second book in the series. I think it's like something similar where the next one is going to be like something to do with like a boss, and it has like the same type of like, it just, the cover is just so funny because she's like rolling her eyes at him. I love that in a cover. Like if you're going to do a cover like that, it's going to be like a cartoonish cover. That's what I'm looking for. It looks funny, and then the second one, it's like the cover is just funny, the way it is. And I'm like, heck yeah, I will take that, any day over some of these other like copy and paste ugly as shit covers. So since I was on my Melanie Moreland kick, I wanted to read some of her other books that I hadn't read like in a while. So I was reading that Reynolds Restorations books, and I really liked the first book. I can't remember about the second or third if I really like those ones. But I decided to get into the fourth book because I knew I hadn't read that one yet. So this one here is Under the Radar, Reynolds Restorations book number 4. And so we got the characters of Hannah Gallagher and Chase Donner. So I gave this 3.5 stars. It was okay. There were a few things I wasn't really a huge fan of. So I'd say in a previous novel, Chase had met Hannah. So when Chase's old roommate moves out of the home they're renting, he needs a new roommate. So Hannah comes to him and tells him that she's interested in renting out a room. He agrees, but then the owner of the house decides to sell the house. Chase was left money from his father, like it's basically like an inheritance he had gotten. He didn't want really anything to do with it because he has bad blood with his father and his brother. Like they would do like different stuff that wasn't like on the up and up, you know. So I think he kind of thinks of it as like almost like blood money, to where it's like his father and brother would do like bad things, and he kind of got into the bad element of it, and so he didn't want to go down that path. You know, he wanted to change things for himself. So Chase was left money from his father that he didn't want to use. So in order to have his dream woman live with him, he puts down his, you know, his pride and decides to buy the house. So it's like very quickly he's already like buying this house. So Hannah moves in and things go from there, which I thought was weird because I'm like, well, sorry, it's the garbage man. If you already own the house, then you don't need a roommate, do you? He desperately wanted her to move in. Oh, so desperately wanted her to move in. I love his nickname for her, though. I can't remember what it called again. Oh, he called her Cinnamon because she had like a reddish hair and her freckles on her face, and he thought of it as Cinnamon. And so I just thought it was so funny. He called her Officer, you know, like he had said Officer Cinnamon, like he was drunk at the time when he called her Officer Cinnamon. And so he calls her Cinnamon. It was so cute. He had such a cute name for her. But I will say, like, it's not a standalone series, so you really need to read these books in order. Because there's previous characters too. So I said I love how Chase kept calling her Hannah, kept calling Hannah Cinnamon because he loved her freckles and they reminded him of cinnamon. I said although I thought it was sweet and he decided to take her last name, yeah, because they move in with each other, and she's dealing with one of her partners, who's a police officer. He's clearly a dirty cop. He's been kind of like pushed around in the system, and it's like, fucking why? If you're a part of the police department, you have to be diligent to not be above the fucking law. You know, this is why we see police brutality and different things like that, because you allow the fucking bad apples to keep permeating in the fucking group. You know, you get rid of the bad apples. You fucking report these fucking people. You know, there is corruption in the police departments. There is corruption. It's definitely not everything's all on the up and up. We know this by now. But this is why I'm like, if you're a good cop, you want these fucking bad apples out of the system, so they're not protecting and serving and taking advantage of citizens, you know? And we're not having police brutality cases and things like that. Like, what was it? There was one that was a recent one where the woman was, had said something to the cop. He went and pulled out his gun super quick, and I was like, dude, why didn't you just pull out mace? Why didn't you just pull out pepper spray? Why didn't you pull out a fucking gun? This woman is just saying something to you. You're being offended by it. And she lifted up a pot to almost kind of like what I saw it as. She looks like she was kind of doing it as a protective thing, like to try to protect herself, because this person pulled a fucking gun on her, and then he killed her. And I'm like, clearly that's a fucking dirty cop. that's a fucking dirty cop, and I hope he fucking goes to prison, because stuff like that shouldn't be happening. You know, if you think this person's mentally not all there, why aren't you calling up for fucking backup? People who could handle people who are mentally ill. You know, because mentally ill people, you have to, you know, and you can't fucking have a social worker at this person, because some mentally ill people are dangerous. So you obviously can't have just a social worker show up. There obviously has to be other things. So with this here, it's like, this guy was a dirty cop. He obviously was corrupt and he did stupid shit. But I will say, at least by the end of the book, like, he did apologize, because he went and put Chase and Hannah through like the ringer, because the guy obviously liked Hannah, wanted to get together with Hannah, saw Chase as like, oh, because Chase has a record, and it's like, just because a person has a record doesn't mean they're going to continue being bad. Sometimes you do something bad and then you learn from that mistake and you don't do it again. You know, sometimes you go to jail and you're like, okay, I don't want to do that again. You know, and then people like always want to stereotype you as like a criminal because you had one offense against you. It could be something like battery. Maybe you beat somebody up. Like maybe you beat up this guy and you went to jail for it or something like that. You know, you're going to go and have that on your record for the rest of your life because you did one horrible thing. So that's basically what it was with this cop. He kept like, oh, well, he's a convict. And it's like, yeah, he did his time. He did his time. He's on the up and up. He's working at this, you know, he's working at this restoration place, you know, where he does like custom work and stuff like that. That's talent, you know, that's talent right there. So the fact that he's trying to keep himself on the straight and narrow, and this fucking dirty ass cop is trying to, you know, basically just condemn him for the rest of his life. And it's like, no, you are not doing shit on the up and up for yourself. So do you think that people should judge you for the rest of your life for some of the stupid shit that you're doing? You know, you're basically using the police force as your way of, you know, stroking your ego. You know, it's like when you have cops with like a high ego, they probably shouldn't be in law enforcement because they're going to abuse the system. You know, the system is there. It's supposed to be there to protect the people. It's supposed to be there to protect citizens, you know? Like, if you have a high crime neighborhood, you don't defund the police in a high crime neighborhood. You obviously want to create more police there so they can help protect the people who are just trying to live their life. But unfortunately, they live in this high crime neighborhood that a lot of people are doing bad things there. So you want to have more police there, and more police that care and not want to take advantage of citizens or the system. So for me, it's like, this guy clearly was like a dirty cop, and so he kept putting like Chase and Hannah through a whole bunch of shit. And to me, I was like, nah, this guy should fucking lose his job. He clearly was in the wrong. And so it basically had it to where at the end, he obviously was like, you know, he's not going to be police anymore. And obviously something the lieutenant said to the guy obviously got him like scared enough to where he was like, you know, all right, it's probably best that I leave the police department. You know, just because you want to become a cop doesn't mean you're going to be a good cop. You know, that's the thing. Like, I thought about it one time, like, you know, oh, I wonder if I, you know, should go into being like a police officer or something. And I was like, nah, I don't think I could handle that type of work. You know, not only is it dangerous because you're dealing with criminals and all that stuff, but also you're dealing with like other people within the force that are like scumbags, that are fucking scumbags, and they slip through the cracks, you know? So for anybody who does bad things, like they did something bad, they clearly, you know, didn't follow like procedure of what they're supposed to do. And also I think there needs to be like proper police reform. Like there should be more training for nuanced situations, you know, for a situation that maybe you would have never thought you would get into, you know, type of thing. So obviously we do need police, but we need to have good police. People who are there to help protect the citizens of whatever town you're living in, state, city, whatever have you, you know? You obviously need good cops. And so this one here was like, yeah, he clearly was like, shouldn't have been on the force. Hannah was a police officer, and you could see like she was a caring police officer. She was trying to help people, but when her past, like she had a past instance where she almost got killed, and that kind of made it to where she had like a PTSD from that. And I'm like, oh girl, I'm like, you could still be in the police force, but I wouldn't be under like, see, it would be something to where it's like maybe you have a desk job, you know, where you're trying to help people through there, like, you know, when it comes to that type of thing, rather than being out in the field kind of thing, because not everybody can handle doing field work and all that stuff. Not everybody can do something like that. Like, I couldn't do something like that. You know, you're constantly on your guard. My anxiety would be so high, you know, would be so freaking high. So I could not handle that. But there was a lot of things in this book where it had to deal with like, you know, when it comes to like police, like, you know, taking advantage of the system, you know, especially when it came to him, and really like being really nasty when it came to Chase, like, because the guy clearly was jealous that Chase and Hannah were dating. And it's like, nah, man, you don't go and use the system that is supposed to help protect you from criminals and use it to your advantage because you're jealous of this dude, you know? So it was just ridiculous to me. So I was like, no, that guy needs to leave the force because he shouldn't be a cop. So, so Chase and Hannah did get together, I felt like, a little too quickly, and then they ended up getting married at the end of the book. And Chase ended up taking her name because he didn't want to be a part of like the Donner name, because he already had like that against him, you know, because his brother was a criminal and his father pretty much wasn't a good person. He didn't really want to keep the Donner name, so he decided to take her name, which was Gallagher. And I'm like, okay, you know, he didn't want to go and, you know, he didn't want to go and keep having that name and people use it against him, you know, because they're like, oh, well, you're a part of the Donners, everything. It's like when you look at Hitler, right? Hitler's family, a lot of his family changed their name. They didn't have that last name of Hitler, or some of them decided not to procreate because they did not want to go and have a family line known to be related to Adolf, you know? So, yeah, honestly, I would do the same thing. So, I mean, I didn't blame him for changing his last name, you know? So, this one here, the things I'd say that made me enjoy the book less. So, I said, one, this book seemed too easy. I said they're both attracted to each other and they hook up and express their feelings too quickly for my taste. I said there wasn't enough angst or conflict in here. I said too, the only real conflict in this book was both Hannah and Chase were dealing with a cop on a power trip and intimidate Chase, but once the character stopped being a dick and apologized, I felt like something else would transpire, but it never did. I said I felt too easy that the guy stopped because he got reprimanded by his superior. So I said 3, I felt like the other characters in here overshadowed the main love interest. Yeah, because there is secondary characters in here that they started kind of like hooking up with each other. And it was basically like Hannah's mom. Like Hannah's mom had Hannah when she was about 18. And her husband, Hannah's father, was a police officer, and he died in like the line of duty. And so the mother was a widow for how many years? So one of Chase's friends that worked at the restoration place, he sees Hannah's mom and he's all like, what, who is she, you know, kind of thing. Oh, that's not your sister, that's your mother, kind of thing. And like, you know, kisses her, you know, like kisses her hand and stuff. And that kind of overshadowed this couple's, you know, love story. But I still enjoyed it. But I will say, like, the cop, like I said, the cop, you know, on a power trip, and, you know, it just kind of makes you think of like other instances of like police brutality or people taking advantage of the system being police officers. I've run into some good cops. There's some good cops I've run into over the years, and they were just doing their job, and I've run into some shitty cops too, you know, and it's like, and I didn't do anything wrong. Like I've never gone to jail. I've never gotten in trouble or anything like that. But yeah, from time to time you run into some shitty ass cops that probably shouldn't be cops in the first place. So I'm kind of like, there's nuanced conversations you can have when it comes to like police and police, you know, reform and, you know, different things like that. There should be things that obviously you could do to make the police force better and run more efficient, you know, to where they're not killing innocent people because they interpreted themselves of being in danger when I was like, you are not in danger. And like, when you look at like, this is why I say like having now having like cops having the body cam footage and all that stuff, it, you know, not only protects the cops from like, you know, false allegations and stuff like that, you know, because people will be like, drop themselves on the floor. We've seen bad people do stupid shit where people will go and like drop themselves on the floor and then act like, you know, oh the police hit me. They were taking advantage of me. This is why that, you know, camera, having the body camera on there does help protect cops, because then the cops can be like, well, look at the body cam. You can see how the person was acting. But also it protects citizens when cops are doing bad shit, because then we can look at the body cam footage and say, look right there. They clearly were not doing their job. This person should be fucking fired. Not only should they be fired, but if they killed somebody, they need to go to jail. And you know how cops are handled in jail? Especially when you know someone's a fucking cop. Oh, they're gonna have their ass fucking handed to them. As those guards, unless they're watching that person, they're gonna get fucked up. Especially when it comes to like, you know, PDF files. You know, if you're a diddler, you know, that likes to attack children, oh, you're gonna get your fucking ass handed to you in prison. They don't like that either. Prisoners do not like kitty diddlers, you know? So yeah. For me, the next one I read, I actually liked this one here more. So I gave this one 5 stars. So this was Full Throttle. So they got Reynolds Restoration number 5 by Melanie Moreland. So we have the characters of Dom and Cherry is Hannah's mother. So it's Hannah's mother having a romance with Dom, who worked at the restoration place. So we got the content warning. There's talk of cancer in here. One of the characters that's in this book has cancer, and then there's death of a parent due to that cancer. So we met these characters in the previous book. I said these are books you have to read in order. So Cherry is in her 40s and is devoted to her daughter Hannah. I said she had her when she was 18, so people are shocked to assume they assume she's Hannah's sister. So when she goes to visit with her daughter, she's introduced to Hannah's roommate Chase and also Chase's friend Dom. Dom is instantly attracted and smitten with Cherry, and she makes things a bit difficult for him at first, but he wears her down. They get involved with each other and everything is great, but then something triggers Dom one day, and he tells her that he has a son named Josh, and he hasn't been able to see him due to his ex, Roxanne. Roxanne's a fucking nightmare. That woman's a see you next Tuesday. She made things very difficult for him and honestly was a huge bitch, denying their son from seeing Dom like for how many years. So Cherry knows someone who helps with fathers getting custody and visitations. So Dom is scared and shocked that he gets to see his son. And this was the thing, like for years, his ex fucking railroaded him. And this is the thing that annoys me when it comes to like family courts and it comes to like custody and timeshare and different things like that. A lot of times they end up taking the female side, you know, which I can understand. Like when it came to back in the day, men had more power than women. So they obviously wanted to course correct to have it to where the mother has the majority of the, taking care of the child. But it's gotten corrupted and abused by shitty ass fucking women. So for me, I'm like, there has to be a proper accounting for different things. Like, personally, I think, mothers, you should show receipts of everything that you spend on, when you get child support. I think that should be, you should do it that way. So that way, I would say the father can't go and say, oh, you're spending it on bullshit. You could be like, look, I'm spending it on clothes. See, I took the child here, picked up clothes. I took the child here, picked up shoes. You're showing that you're paying your rent and all this other stuff. And people, people will be like, oh, well, it's used for your rent. If you didn't have a kid, you'd still have to pay rent. Just saying, if you did not have a child, you'd still be paying rent. Now, if you're living in a 2-bedroom apartment, or house or whatever it is, maybe I'll just go with apartment. Say you're paying for a 2-bedroom apartment. If you were single, then you would be getting into a 1-bedroom apartment. Or if you were in the 2-bedroom apartment, then you maybe have a roommate. That roommate's helping you with rent. So yeah, now you have to pay more for rent because you have a child. So I'd say, okay, I can excuse that type of thing. You have to pay more rent, so the child support helps with that. But I've seen way too many mothers out there, especially on social media, that love to promote bad behavior of like, oh, well, I needed to get my nails done. And, oh, there wasn't enough child support. Why are you using child support to fucking do your nails? Personally, I don't do my nails. As you can see, I don't get my fucking nails done. I focus on my children. That's the ones who are going to be dressing nicer than me, especially because I'm like, I don't need to dress fancy. I don't have a job. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't need to dress fancy. I don't need to have work clothes, different things like that. So all of my money, that I get for my children is going to my children. Yes, there are some things I do for myself because I don't have any money coming in. So the money that I get from my children helps to pay for the rent and all that stuff, to keep a roof over our heads. So I could justify if some people want to use child support for like helping to pay the rent, electric, different things like that. I have a problem when you see the child who looks like they're being neglected and, they're in like fucking rags and their shoes are all dirty and everything. If you're getting child support, why aren't you using that for your kid? So there are some women who do take advantage of the system and I don't like it. But then, there are some scumbag dads out there too. So it's like, it's kind of double, there's double there. That's why I try to be equal and say like, well, there are some shitty deadbeat dads out there, but there are also some shitty moms out there too that are taking advantage of the system, I've known a couple of women who try to take advantage of like the dads and stuff, and the dads were doing their parts, and they were trying to take advantage. So this here, it's like the mother clearly was taking advantage of the system. And so they had it to where it's starting to switch, especially in Canada. Like there was one actor there, I can't remember his name, I think it was Dave Foley or something like that. He said he can never go back to Canada. He can never go back to Canada because the court system had it to where he owed too much money and he couldn't keep up the payments. And so they had it to where if you can't keep up the payments, you go to jail. And I'm like, well, how the fuck is that solving anything? I could see like if the father's a deadbeat dad and he basically deliberately keeps himself from getting a job. There's some people who they work under the table in order for it to not show up for the IRS and all that stuff, because you go after your any father out there who's getting child support taken from his checks. The state, or I'd say the child support agency had a hand in getting some of that money taken out of the father's check, so that way it goes into the mother's, it goes into the child support account, because there's like cards, like anybody who's like, they say child support check, and I'm like, do you get a check anymore? I don't think so. Like, now they have it to where it's like, it goes directly onto like a card. And so you're using the card, So for me, it's like, there is bad when it comes to like, good and bad. And so, yeah, the actor there, Dave Foley, I believe he had said that he can't go back to Canada because he would go straight to jail because he owes back child support payments. And he tried to pay them, but I guess, when it came to Canada, there was like, they have more strict kind of like laws and stuff there. So here in the U.S., it's like, there is some justice helping certain fathers, like especially when they have the mothers playing games with the system and all that stuff. Like, if when it comes to like, I know for me, when it comes to like courts, they will waive the mother's fees. If you go and you tell them you can't pay for like the court fees and all that stuff, they'll waive them if you're a female. But did they waive them for the dad? No. I'd say there might be like extenuating circumstances, but they don't waive them for the father. But they will do it for the female. So this one here had it to where he was dealing with a lot of shit. And so she knew somebody. And so they got in contact with this like family lawyer. And so the family lawyer had basically had it to where they're like, no, we can, you were paying your child support. You were making the attempt of trying to see your child. And so they basically had it to where the courts said no. I mean, he's allowed, he's allowed visitations, and the mom didn't like that. Ooh, fuck no, she did not like that. And so she tried to play fucking games. And so eventually what happened is she stopped playing fucking games because she found out she had cancer. And her husband, or was her boyfriend, I think it might have been a boyfriend at the time, was a fucking dick. He was being a fucking jerk off. And so she basically kind of like relented and, realized that, he wants to see his son. I'm going to allow him to see his son. And so Don was able to start getting a relationship with his son, Josh, who was like, I think he was about 13 or 14 at the time. And the last time he had saw his son was like when he was little, The mother denied him all that fucking time of seeing his son. And that kind of like really, it really upset me because I don't like when parents do that. They go and they use their child to get back at the ex. And I'm like, no, fuck that. You don't do that. Like, I tried to be a co-parent with my ex, even though my ex was a major butthole. But I tried to be a co-parent with him and let him come and see his daughters, And I mean, I had it to where there were times he didn't have a lot of money, and he would come to my apartment, and he'd be like, hey, you got a chance, like, do you have a chance? Or, like, do you have any leftovers? He's like, I don't have a lot of money. And so I'm like, yeah, dude, I'll give you some food. So I went and gave him food, Last year of his life, he gave me no child support. It was basically, my husband who was taking care of, all of us. And he paid no child support. He didn't have a job half the time, couldn't keep a job. Was staying in a hotel, or a motel, was staying in a motel. And he didn't have food half the time. So he'd come over and he'd be like, hey, you got any leftovers? And I'd look in the refrigerator and I'm like, yeah, I got spaghetti. You want some spaghetti? And I'd go and give him spaghetti, or I'd give him this or that. So, I mean, I could have said to him, no, stay out of my apartment. You're not coming up with any child support. Just go away. It got to a point where I was like, dude, you need to get your shit together, because you can't come over to my apartment and like just pass out or whatever it is. You can't do stuff like that. You need to pay attention to your daughters. If you're not going to do that, then just don't come over. It got to that point, toward like the end of him. So he just got really bad. So yeah, I was like, do you want to see your daughters like that? Do you want your daughters to remember you that way? Remember you being like not all there? Is that what you want your daughters to remember you by? So I'm like, handle your shit, man. So even with me, it's like I couldn't stand him, but I'm like, I still had a heart. I'm still like, I'm not a fucking horrible person where I'm like, nah, fuck you, man, just go jump off a bridge or something, Even with me, it's like I'm a, I'm a sucker, I'll say that. I'm a sucker. I still try to help people even if they treat me like crap, So, yeah, for this here, it's like the mother clearly was starting to kind of like give up, that control and all that stuff. Especially because I'm like, the dude wasn't doing anything wrong. You were just being a fucking bitch and just denying him from seeing his kid, And she finally got to that point where she was like, okay, I'll, she kind of like gave up that control and allowed, Dom to have a relationship with his son Josh. And so Josh like really matured a lot, within that time frame. And I thought it was great, that he had a really good relationship, with his dad. It was kind of like a, on and off kind of thing, and it got better, for him. And then with Cherry, like Josh really liked Cherry, so he definitely had like a really good relationship with, like, I'd say his sort of stepmom, and she was being like really good, like even being really good with like his mother, Josh's mom, and it's like, trying to communicate with her and, being civil and all that stuff. I thought that was great. It could have been like a huge, fucking drama thing, but you could clearly see like Cherry was very mature and she was trying to like, help out and all that stuff. So, so he did save, Dom did save Cherry, because one night her apartment was on fire because below she was working at this like, she was working at like this hairdresser because she was a hairdresser, but she really needed to get to the point of retirement because her body was breaking down on her. And so he ended up saving her. And so he basically had her move in with him. So I said, what I loved about this book, I said, Hero was absolutely obsessed with the heroine. He just wanted to spend as much time with her as possible. I said, too, you could see how much he got fucked over by the system, but how much he tried to fight for his son, for years. Like he would send letters and birthday cards and they would get sent back. They would get returned back. And so he had a history of showing like he was trying to have a relationship with his son. And so that's what helped him in court too, is showing all of this, the back letters and birthday cards he would send to his, kid. And he even gave them to Josh, like, here, you can look over all of the ones I sent to you. And he went through them. Josh ended up going through all of them. And I'm like, who are you hurting here? Who are you hurting here, lady? You're hurting your child by denying them their father. That's fucked up. Just because of your fucking pride. So I'm glad that the mom changed a bit too. I said 3, I love seeing Cherry having a great relationship with Dom's son. Also Hannah becoming a great stepsister, or stepsister to him. And that Hannah, Cherry's daughter, she had a really good relationship with him, and she kind of treated him like, like a little brother. I thought it was really sweet too, like he needed somebody like in his corner, supporting him, And I said 4, I was happy that the mother, Roxanne, stopped being a bitch and they were able to become closer as a shared family unit. I said when Roxanne developed cancer, she had help with meals with Dom's friends, also being there in her final days. So I said she knew that Dom and Cherry would take care of their son. So I thought it was really sweet because it's like, imagine if Cherry didn't come along. Where would have that child been? So it's a good thing that Cherry came along when she did and was able to help Dom have a relationship, establish this relationship with his son, and have his son like spend the last days with his mom, because she did die of cancer. So it was a bit emotional toward the end. I was like, oh God, I can't stand this woman. She was a bitch, but I do feel sorry that she had cancer, So I will, say there, it's like, even though I thought she was a bitch, still, it's like, it's sad that she passed away. So, okay. So the other ones I read was Aldo. This is Men of the Falls, book number 1 by Melanie Moreland. So I gave this 4 stars. So you have the characters of Aldo and Violet. So I said also Roman and Luca all run and own this casino club near Niagara Falls in Canada. Or I meant Aldo. It changed to also. Jesus. Spell check, man. So Aldo does a lot of the hiring. So when he has an interview with Violet Nelson, he's intrigued with her. So Violet wants to start over from being in a relationship with her ex where he stole her things from her and her ex-friend went with him when he took off. So like her ex and her ex-friend were cheating. So that's fucked up. So when she gets interviewed by Aldo for the deli job at their casino, she's instantly attracted to him. So they dance around each other until one day they can't fight their attraction, so they start hooking up. Like they definitely have some great banter with each other, you know, where he's like keeps following her, keeps watching her, you know, just to see like what she's doing, how she's doing at her job. And you could see like she's attracted to him, he's attracted to her. So like I said, they kind of dance around each other for a little bit, and then finally it's like they can't control themselves anymore and they start like having sex. So one night a man comes in and is harassing the staff at the deli because he lost a lot of money at the casino. So he threatens Violet, and Aldo does what he can to protect her. Like, he's very protective of her. As it was a cute story, I enjoyed how protective he was of her, plus helping her out by finding her a better place. Like, that was like his thing that he instantly did. Like, as soon as he got hired her for the job, he was like, oh, you live here? Oh, no, we're not doing that. And he was like, I'll find you a place. And so he knew this couple, and he was like, I will, you know, he basically told the couple, like, that owned this apartment complex, he's like, I'll pay her first and last month's rent, get her in, you know. And so the heroine, Violet, was pretty much like, you know, did you pay for my first and last month's rent? Don't do that. I'm like, I have to pay you back. And she didn't want to go and, you know, have to rely on him, because she wanted to try to like do for herself. And so he basically was like, you know, taking over and like, you know, no, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to do this and do that. And I thought that was kind of sweet that he was doing that. And the person who was like, had kind of threatened her turned out to be like a real sick fucker, you know. And so they, Aldo basically was like, he beat the crap out of the guy and also basically like took care of it, you know, because the guy turned out to be like, I'd say probably like almost like a serial killer. He had hurt several other women around the club area, you know, because it was a casino and there was like restaurants in there and stuff like that. And it was also a hotel too. And so, you know, when he finds out, like, hey, this guy was, like, basically hunting around that area for, like, victims, they're like, we need to take care of this fucking dude. So they took care of it, you know? So, for me, I was like, yeah, good, this person, you know, a waste of space, good thing that they're not there anymore. So, the next book in that series was Roman, and this one here I gave 4 stars. So we got Effie and Roman. So there's content warning for battery, kidnapping, death, and gun violence. So Roman, his older brother Luca, and his best friend Aldo run a few casinos and hotels in Canada. One night, a woman named Marianne tries to run away from a debt she owes the casino. She doesn't have the money, so she tried to sell off her sister Effie. Yeah, her sister Marianne's a piece of shit. Claiming Effie is a virgin and it will settle her debt. So, kidnapping and human trafficking. Oh, great, lady, great. Disgusted by what Marianne suggests, Roman tells her to go to someone else with that type of offer. One day on a detour around the city, Roman sees the bagel restaurant Effie owns because her sister Marianne told him, you know, where she works and all that stuff, that she owns this bagel place. So he decides to go into it. He sees Effie and is instantly attracted to her. He tells her to watch out for her sister. Like, he's saying, like, if your sister says anything to you or offered, you know, asks you for whatever, say no. You know, he's like, say no. Don't, you know, don't help her out. Because he knows that she's a fucking scumbag, you know. And, you know, of course, you know, Effie pretty much knows her sister's, like, you know, not a good person, you know? So next thing he knows, Effie gets kidnapped by these disgusting brothers called the Santinis. Roman finds out where she is, and he rescues her. So he takes her back to his hotel and keeps her there until the threat against her is gone. And so during that time, Roman and Effie get romantically involved. Like he is an obsessive hero. He is very much an obsessive hero. He ended up becoming very obsessed and smitten with her like right away. He didn't want to admit it, you know, for a long time. Didn't want to admit that he had like more than, you know, friendship feelings for her. I was like, dude, why are you fighting this? You know, it was, you know, very much like, didn't want to admit like his feelings. So, I had said, I enjoyed the story. Roman fought his feelings throughout most of the book, but you can clearly see how utterly besotted and obsessed he was for Effie. I said Effie's sister Marianne was a huge piece of shit, and she had always hated Effie. You come to find out, like, there would be instances where Effie would get into, like, an accident. She'd get into an accident, and you end up finding out her sister was trying to hurt her, even when she was little. The sister was always jealous of her, even when she was little. And so it was, like, definitely just a lot of fucked up shit from Marianne. She was a horrible person. Her sister was a horrible person. And so Effie kind of like went through a lot, but Roman, man, he was so like protective of her, you know, to the point of like Effie's like, I want to go outside, I want to go to my business, and he's just like, no, you know, you need to stay here, I need to protect you. And I did enjoy it, but yeah, you can clearly see like her sister was a major piece of shit, you know, just a terrible person. So this one here, this is like a 3-book duet. I didn't realize that when I delved into the first book, and I'm like, I don't really want to read the other 2 books in the series. I'm not really a big fan of like the series where it's one couple and it's like 2 or 3 books, and I'm like, I get bored with the same characters. So this one here is called The Contract by Melanie Moreland. So we got the characters of Richard and Catherine. She goes by Katie. So there's content warning, talk of child neglect, parental deaths, parental figure with Alzheimer's, teenage homelessness. So Richard is an ad executive who is working at a job with a dick of a boss who gives a promotion to another employee. About ready to cough. All of a sudden it's like my throat's dry. Tired of feeling like he isn't getting anywhere in his career, he decides to look at another agency to get hired. He talks with his friend, and he tells Richard that if he wants to get hired at this particular company, he needs to show that he is a family man, not a playboy. So Richard decides on enlisting the help from his PA, who he has treated like crap for a year, that she's been working under him. So Catherine is afraid she will get let go if Richard quits, so she decides to help him by pretending to be his girlfriend. It's a slow burn romance. This couple goes from not liking each other to becoming friends/allies to falling in love with each other. I said both have traumatic backstories that they tell to each other during the story. I said I loved how Richard went from being a total asshole and being a complete dickhead to the heroine to falling in love with her. I said I loved seeing his transformation, but also having some hiccups and having good communication skills with each other when he does things that she doesn't like. You know, he would mess up from time to time, but I did like that they did communicate with each other. And so him apologizing to her and groveling, I thought that was good, that, you know, he had apologized to her for his treatment, for how he treated her, like for that whole year of, you know, her working for him. So Catherine went through a lot in her childhood and also in her adult years, but I appreciated how strong-willed she was, and I loved her banter with Richard. She had a backbone. But because she was taken care of with the Alzheimer's and the teenage homelessness, she ended up becoming a homeless as a teenager because she was in the foster care system and she didn't want to be in there. And so while she was a homeless teen, this woman came along and ended up telling her like, hey, I could take you in and take care of you. And so the woman ended up becoming like almost like a mother to her, like a second mother, because she lost her parents. I think it was like a car accident or something like that. And so she ended up, the woman ended up like getting custody of her and taking her in and becoming like a mother to her. And then eventually the lady ended up developing Alzheimer's, and she couldn't like remember. She was like in like almost like a group home or like a old folks home kind of thing, but it was costing a lot of money. So she spent a lot of money to help take care of this lady because she took care of her. You know, she took care of her for years and gave her a safe space, you know, safe place and all that stuff. And I thought it was great, you know, that she took on this girl and, you know, was able to handle her and got her, you know, into a good place to where this girl could get herself a job and do better for herself, you know. And she had somebody who was there for her, who was giving her encouragement and all that stuff, you know. And I really liked that. And because I said, you know, there are some people who are in the foster care system that are not either treated good, or they end up kind of like shoved out at 18, like, you know, you're no longer our fucking problem anymore. And it's like, it's sad how, you know, you have people who give up their kids or, you know, different things like that. And I just like, it makes me sad, you know, that you can't take care of your kids. Like, I don't claim to be the best mother in the world, but I try my best with my kids, you know. And if I took on someone else's children, I would do the same thing with them. Like, try to let them know, like, you know, you're safe here, you know, with me. I'm going to always have the best, you know, ideas for you, you know, to put you out there in the world and have you land on your feet, you know, and not force you out and hope you fly kind of thing. I don't like the whole thing of like shoving your kids out at like 18. I mean, that's kind of like a thing that they kind of like taught, you know, older generations, like the baby boomers and shit like that. They'll be like, oh, well, my kid went out at 18. And I'm like, well, you know, have you fucking seen the economy lately? You don't shove them out at 18. You know, you expect them to go and get like, have good credit and shit. You know, they have to build up credit. You know, when they turn 18 and they want to get themselves a credit card, they got to build up credit. You got to build that stuff up in order to go and get into an apartment. You got to have like, what is it? Like 3 times the amount of money you make in order to go and get into a fucking apartment, you know? So for me, I'm like, no, if your kids want to stay with you longer so they can go and save up money and, you know, or go to school or whatever it is, they'll go to college or whatever it is, I would never force my kids out. I would never do that. And you see some of this like it is with here. It's like forcing kids out at 18. It's like some of these kids can't even get fucking jobs at 18, you know, because of how the market is and all that stuff. And now you expect them to like soar? I'm like, come on, you know? So yeah, for me, I'm like, I did appreciate that there was a woman who took on, you know, her care and took care of her, you know? And so she was basically trying to pay it back to this lady and take care of her in her last days and stuff. And the woman did succumb and she did pass away, and it was sad. It was a sad time, you know. She clearly was close with this lady who she thought of like a second mom to her. And that was sad. That was a sad part in the book. And then there's, like I said, there's other books involved with this series, but I was like, you know what? I don't want to read book 2 and 3, because what if there's like problems with them? I don't want to hear about their problems. I'm like, okay, happily ever after, they're done. You know, I'm like, I don't want to read it anymore. But I thought it was a cute story still. I did enjoy it, especially because I'm like, the hero was such an asshole. He was such a dick to her. So the next ones I read, hopefully I could be a little bit quicker. I'm very long. I'm sorry. I'm very long with my explanations of these books. So the next one I ended up reading, I don't think it's just part of a series too. I don't think I'm going to read the rest of the series because I don't think these books are going to be probably good enough for me. So I was like, I thought the first one I liked, but I'm like, I don't think I want to read it anymore. So I ended up reading Guardian. This is Prison Planet #1 by Emmy Chandler. So we got the characters of Audra, Tyson, and Macy. So content warning is there's attempted sexual assault in here, attempted sodomy, assault and battery, death, kidnapping. So Audra, Macy, and other women are dropped off at this prison planet for crimes that they committed, obviously. But some of the crimes, I'm like, is it really, you know, is the crime worth the punishment? That's what I want to say. Is the crime worth the punishment? Because some of these people, it's like, what did they do? What did they do so bad that they're going to get dropped off at this prison planet where you're not going to get treated well? Especially because it's like a habitation where you're dealing with men and women. Fuck. You know? If you're dealing with just women, that's one thing. Because some women can be brutal towards other women. But now you're dealing with guys. And possibly sexually assaulted for how long? Yeah. Yeah. So, Audra takes a protective position of Macy because the young lady looks very childlike. She has to be at least 18, but she looks very young for her age. Macy ends up being like 20. So because only adults are allowed on this planet, so the women are dropped off at different sections of the planet, and Audra notices that as soon as these ladies are dropped off, other women in that section rob them of their goods. So while in the elevator, Audra and Macy pack different items in their clothing, so they're not completely without their necessities, like, you know, like some food, like they have these like food bars, water pouches, they have like a toothbrush and a toothpaste and, you know, different necessities they may need, like, you know, where they're going to live. A pack of matches, things like that. So Macy and Audra get dropped off in the section where this woman named Wendy picks and chooses females who are attractive and who are attracted to men, and takes the attractive women to a section of the prison where the women have to choose a male who will take care of the women. And these women have to do sexual acts with the men. So, of course, some of these women are being abused by the men there. Audra knows she won't survive long unless she chooses wisely, so she ends up choosing Tyson. And he manages to also take Macy as well. When he takes them to a room, he tells Audra that he only wants her. He says that, you know, he doesn't touch children because he thinks that Macy's too young as well. And he's like, I'm not a, you know, molester. So Audra and him go about having a sexual relationship, but he also is a giver in the bedroom, and he wants her to actually enjoy their time together. Like, he doesn't grape her. You know, he wants her to enjoy herself too. So I enjoyed this book. I said Tyson was a good man who did something stupid in his youth, like he stole the car. And he wasn't expecting to be chosen by one of the women. He never was before, because he was a really big guy, and he isn't very intimidating. So the women assumed that he might be violent. He was, but to the men who tried to be violent towards him, he would be violent toward the other men, but he wouldn't be violent toward women. I also loved how all he wanted to do was protect Audra and Macy, and he would literally kill in order to keep them safe. Like, he literally killed some of the men in order to keep them safe, because some of them wanted to grab Macy and, you know, obviously assault her. And, you know, since she does look like childlike, yeah, that's fucking creepy. That's some creepy shit. So, yeah, I was like, good thing he was protecting both of them. And he was a pretty big dude, too. Audra was a very smart and resourceful woman who did what she could to survive. I said, this book is very similar to Hold by Claire Kent. There was some people who were claiming that they thought this author stole the idea and stole the summary and the plot point from Claire Kent's Hold. And I'm like, well, just because you have a similar storyline doesn't mean that you stole the whole story, you know? There were some similar things in here, and I did feel like they were kind of similar, but I'd say that there were some differences to this as well. But I'd say, like, if you wanted to go and compare the two, I would say Claire Kent's Hold, I thought was better. I thought was a better book than this one here, even though I still enjoyed this one. But I will say, like, if you want to compare the two, I do feel like Claire Kent's Hold was a better book overall. So yeah, so if you read this book and wanted to find something similar, then I would go for, I would go for Guardian by M.E. Chandler. I said this is the first book in a series. I tried getting into the second book with Macy, and I was like, I wasn't feeling it. So I ended up DNFing it. I didn't care for it. So this next book here, I am kind of like, I don't know about, because I think it's very weird. So the author's called Manus Dare. I found this on Amazon, and I'm like, is this like an AI author? I don't know, because you don't see a picture of this person. So I'm like, is it AI? I don't know. And I look at the cover and I'm like, is the cover AI? It looks too AI to me, but I don't know. It may be an actual artist, but I was like, I like the cover, but I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of up in the air. So I'm like, I don't feel like this author's like good enough, or I don't know who this author is to like research enough to say whether or not I would want to continue reading this author. So I was like, you know what? I don't know if I feel right about this, reading this author. I don't know anything about this author. I don't know about their social media, or if they show their face or anything like that. I'm always kind of leery with like these anonymous authors, where I'm like, I can understand why they don't want to show their face, but also on the other hand, it's like, how do I know you're real and you're not AI? Because there's so many AI books out on Amazon now that I'm like, I'm leery, like, okay, what is this? So I ended up reading Cheating with My Boyfriend's Bully. Yeah. Cheating with My Boyfriend's Bully. This here was, if you want to call romance porn, this was corn. This was corn for sure. So I said, this is definitely pure erotica, not much plot, just lots of fucking and her cheating on her boyfriend with her boyfriend's bully. Yeah. Like, she meets the bully and she first tries to defend her boyfriend, who I think her boyfriend was a bit of like a simp pussy kind of thing. If you want to say anybody's a simp pussy, it would be her boyfriend. And I think this, I want to say this also could have been written by a man. Like, I'd say, like, it's more of like letters to Penthouse, kind of thing. Like, dear Penthouse, That's the way I kind of think about it. I'm like, I think it's a dude who's writing these books, because it's very much like the one guy's a simp pussy and this other guy's more of a dominant. And there was like there was like a part in the book where the guy that's fucking the chick, that's the bully, is like, yeah, I fucked your boyfriend's other girlfriend like in high school and it got her pregnant. And I was like, And the boyfriend paid for the abortion. Not the one who knocked her up, but the boyfriend paid for the abortion. And I was like, okay, now. I'm like, I can't keep going with this. So I read that and I gave it a 3 and I was like, okay. Then it had a book number 2. And after this, I was like, I'm not going for book number 3. Or if there's any other books with the same title, no, thank you. So it's Cheating with My Boyfriend's Bully 2. And I was like, I gave this a 2. It was bad. It was just like, ugh. I said, much the same with the first book, but even worse for the poor girl's boyfriend, who catches them in the act. And it got more gross. And the humiliation that the bully puts the boyfriend through is terrible. After the chick F's the bully and he spooches on her, the boyfriend gets home and he decides he wants to have sex with his girlfriend, and she still has the bully's spooge in her vajayjay. Yeah. And then the boyfriend decides to go down on her, and I'm like, yeah. And then, and then, like, it gets to a point where the bully's having sex with the chick, and the boyfriend ended up falling, and they got on top of the boyfriend and were still doing it while this guy's watching in a horror. And I'm like, if you want to talk about somebody self-deleting because of something like that, that would be self-deletion. That would be like this person getting to the point where they off themselves because of the brutality of what they've gone through with dating different chicks. And all of these chicks getting effed by this guy's bully. And I'm just like, this is horrible. I'm like, this is so bad. I'm like, I could see this guy literally self-deleting because of what the girlfriend did with his bully. I'm like, just, what the fuck? You know, it was just, it was a lot of what the fuck. It was a lot of what the fuck. And I'm just like, I'd say like, yeah, this is like a dude writing this. It was just, yeah, not good. Not good. Yeah, I don't want to read any more from that author. I'm good. So the next book was Cat Baxter. This is Knocking Up His Best Friend, book number 1 of Hot Texas Nights. So we got the characters of Allie and Cooper. So there's content warnings for talk of infertility issues. So Allie and Cooper have been best friends for years, and Cooper has been in love with her for almost as long. He started feeling things for her when he was a teenager. Allie wants a baby, and Cooper tells her that he wants to help her out. So he sets about doing that by having her marry him so he can have her on his health insurance and where it pays for IVF treatments. Also, he wants to give her his baby makers the old-fashioned way, if you know what I mean. So this was a very sweet romance. I said I really liked Cooper. He was such a sweetheart and would do anything for Allie. I did get frustrated with Allie, especially around the 85% point. She had major insecurity issues and didn't think she was skinny or pretty enough for Cooper. She did something stupid, and her friend and employee basically told her to get her head out of her ass and realized that she loved Cooper too. So this book was novella length, so I got through it pretty quickly. And yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I did enjoy it. So I decided to do the next book in that series, where this was Hot Texas Nights series, book number 2. This is called Fakesgiving. Now, these characters were in the previous book. So we got Jackson and Caitlin. So Jackson and Caitlin work together. She asks Jackson to be her fake boyfriend at Thanksgiving. Jackson has no problem with doing that because he has feelings for Caitlin. So I said this was okay. I said it was too quick of them getting together, and that's basically what it was. It was a novella length, and I did feel like that the characters got together like way too quickly. But you know, like I said, it was decent. I did like the first book better, you know. I thought the hero in the first book was, you know, really caring and, you know, really loved, you know, the heroine. This one here, I felt like it was definitely a little more lust-based, you know. So I ended up listening to Unsteady by Peyton Corinne. So I gave this a 3.5. So he said, if you didn't like Icebreaker, like the Icebreaker the Icebreaker book by Hannah Grace, if you didn't like that book, I'd say you probably would like this one here. This one here has a little more depth to it, you know, though I will say, like, I did feel like this book was definitely more targeted for new adult, you know, like there's some new adult I could read where I'm like, okay, excuse me, I can read it now and be okay with it in my 40s. Where this here, it's like, I feel like the maturity level of this is definitely more of like people in their 20s or so, you know. That's probably why I didn't love this book. So we got the characters of Reese and Sadie. So there's content warning for PTSD, severe untreated anxiety, and alcoholic parent. So Reese is dealing with PTSD from a past hockey accident on the ice, and he also keeps dealing with really bad anxiety attacks. So Sadie and Reese have a bad first encounter where he misjudges her and she gets mad at him. The next time they see each other, he's sprawled out onto the ice having another anxiety attack. She goes to him and helps to calm him down. From there, he's instantly hooked to her. So Sadie has a lot on her shoulders for years. She is the eldest in her family and takes care of her younger siblings. So Liam is 6 years old and Oliver is 12. While her father is an alcoholic and emotional cripple. I mean, this guy could not get... There's a difference between functional alcoholics and ones that can't function at all. This guy could not function at all. And I'm like, how the fuck does this guy still have custody of his children? Because the mother of Sadie and Oliver was paying the father child support. So how much of a fucked up mom you gotta be to where you're paying child support to the dad and the father is just non-functioning? You know, she's having to take care of her two younger brothers. The third child, Liam, who's the youngest, the mom split as soon as that kid was born. So Sadie's been taking care of Liam since he was a baby. So it's almost like Sadie's the mother, you know? Well, and so I said, he is barely there taking care of them. I said, yeah, Sadie's the one that's doing it all. I said, so besides Sadie going to college, having 2 jobs, practicing her figure skating, and taking care of her brothers, she really doesn't have much time for anything else. So I thought this story was alright. The problems I had with it were that the story bored me through half of the book. Even though I felt for both of the characters, I found them to be annoying. I also was frustrated with the story as well. So I said, Reese was dealing with crippling anxiety to the point where I think his parents should have pushed him out of school and into intensive therapy until he got his anxiety under control, especially since hockey and being on the ice was too much for him. He leaned on Sadie for too much, and that I felt like it wasn't fair to her. I felt like he took too much from her emotionally. I said, finally, towards the end, I started to see him man up and go back to therapy, where he should have never left in the first friggin' place. I mean, he's like, oh, I left therapy. And I'm like, dude, you have severe anxiety, more anxiety than what I've dealt with. And it's like, this is crippling for you. You need therapy. You need to stay in therapy. You know, stay in therapy until you can get your shit together, until you learn to control this yourself without having to rely on others to help you. So I said, Sadie at times really frustrated me as a character. I can understand how she wanted to protect her brothers, but she needed to get some kind of help. So it's not like she was underage too. She was an adult and was the only responsible parental figure for her siblings. I also was not a fan of her coach. She kept putting too much pressure on her. The guy was a scumbag. That guy was a fucking scumbag. So Reese's parents were great, but I do feel like his mother Anna enabled and babied Reese too much. She really needed to push him to keep going to therapy, and her keeping things from Reese's dad wasn't great either. I said I did love to see how his parents really showed concern for Sadie and her brothers and wanted to help, because Sadie shouldn't have had all that pressure and responsibility on her hands. It got to the point where toward the end of the book, his parents took over the care of Liam and Oliver. They went, basically decided to like adopt them or, you know, take over guardianship of them. And I'm like, I thought that was fantastic that they were trying to help her, you know. I thought it was great toward the end. But there was a lot of frustration that I had for like half of the book, where it was like I felt very bored with it. So I said the reason I gave this 3.5 is because the author does have potential to thrive and grow with her writing, because I think this is like her first book. I do feel like this story lingered longer than it should have. The story could have been tightened up a bit more. I said I am curious about the next book in the series. I actually wanted to know more about the secondary characters more than caring what happened with the main couple. So there are other characters in the group, like the hockey group and all that stuff, the hockey team. I wanted to see what happened with like this other character. I think his name was like Frankie or Freddie or something like that. I wanted to see what happened with him, because that sounded interesting. So I will check out book number 2. But that one there, I felt like it was like drawn out too long. There was a lot of boring parts, like with college life and stuff like that, where I'm like, I don't give a shit, you know? So, I mean, there were things in it that I felt like was really boring while I was listening to this. And it wasn't until like halfway point where I was like, okay, now it's starting to pick up and get better, you know? And then, like I said, I felt like Reese was a little bit too emotionally crippled. And he needed to kind of like get himself stronger. And it wasn't toward the end where he started to get stronger and I was like, okay, good. Now you can help Sadie out because this girl's dealing with a lot of shit. A lot of shit, you know? More than what she should have to. Because her father should be taking on the responsibility of his other 2 fucking kids. But he was too much of an emotional fucking cripple and staying, you know, an alcoholic, you know, where I only have sympathy for addicts for so much. Then it comes to a point where I'm like, get your fucking shit together. You know? I only have so much sympathy for addicts. And then it's like, you need help. You need help. If you don't want to admit that you need help, I can't fucking help you. I can't be there for you to watch you destroy your fucking life. I can't be there. If you want to go and self-delete, be my fucking guest. You know? But if you want to get help, then it's okay to ask for it. And work the fucking steps. You know, this is why there is AA. This is why there is NA, you know, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. There is help for that. If you have a lot of mental issues, therapy, get your fucking shit together. You know? No one's going to help you but yourself. So that one there was a bit frustrating because the father really pissed me off because I wanted to go into that fucking home and I wanted to be like, dude, get your fucking shit together for your kids. Why the fuck is it responsibility of your daughter to take care of your fucking kids? It just really frustrated me. It really did, you know, because I'm like, I've seen parents like that. And I'm like, this is why I rarely drink, because I see what has done to other people. I see what alcohol has done to people. It destroys fucking lives. You know, drugs destroys people's fucking lives. So I don't get into it. I don't do drugs. You know, I don't smoke. You know, I don't go and do weed. I've tried edibles, but they fuck me up. They fuck me up. I can't get into edibles. I can't get any of that stuff. So I pretty much, I'm almost straight edge at this point because I don't really get into any of that stuff. I do have alcohol from time to time, but it's more of like wine coolers and things like that. Something where maybe it's only like 5% alcohol in it. I don't get into all that stuff, and it's rare. I mean, it's only like when I'm hanging out with like my husband's family that maybe I'll have like a strawberry margarita or something like that where it's like very low alcohol content. I'm fine with that, you know. I don't need to go and drink to get drunk. I don't need to get drunk. I don't like getting drunk. I don't like the feeling. I feel like crap when I do. I prefer to keep on the straight and narrow, you know. And like for me, my way of relaxing is like just being able to lay down and read. That's my way of relaxing, you know. So yeah, I felt very frustrated with the father. And like I said, for her, it was like she was very stubborn, and it kind of frustrated me a bit because I was like, girl, ask for help. And see the signs that your coach is fucking like overly like working you. Like even the guy who was the fucking bully dickhead, like that had went and like caused the injury for Reese, even that fucking guy was like, your coach is overworking you. He's over like training you. And I was like, why the fuck is it that fucking dude who is supposed to be the bully dude? Why the hell is he defending Sadie when it should be the job of Reese to do it? You know? Why did it take so long for Reese to figure this shit out? I was like, come on, dude. You know? So that frustrated me. So the last book I'll talk about, and then I can stop this video because it's very long, is his Tesoro, which I think Tesoro means treasure in Italian. So it's Amelia Rossi. This is Empire Royals book 1. I do want to read like the second book in this because I did like this one. So we got the characters of Matteo and Sophia. So it's content warning, ableist language, confinement, death, violence, attempted sexual assault, BDSM, phallus warming. I'll say that, phallus warming, because, you know, saying COCK may not be good for you too. Human trafficking. So that's why I'll say phallus warming. So, I said to bring mob families together to battle the Armenians with human trafficking, and Irish, and you know, they felt like that they're dealing with Irish, you know, with human trafficking too. A Russian family agrees to marry their daughter Sofia off to the Italian Don Matteo. What Matteo doesn't know is that until she's wheeling herself down the aisle, the woman he's marrying is in a wheelchair. So Sofia has hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos. It's a connective tissue disorder, so her joints can be easily dislocated. Oof, it sounds so painful. It sounds so painful. Anybody who has that, I feel so bad for them, because it sounds like such a painful, like, disorder, you know? She also bruises easily. So some days she needs her wheelchair, and other days she's okay with her walker. So she is scared of Matteo at first because she doesn't know how he's going to treat her, because her father's a major piece of shit who would put her down, and also he beat his daughter. This guy was a piece of shit. Off that guy. But once they get married, he is gentle with her, so she starts to open up with how she lived with her family, and, you know, her sister Mila, I think it's Mila, is great. So they start out as friends and move to being lovers. I said this was such a sweet romance. I said Matteo developed an obsessive attachment to Sofia fairly quickly. He didn't want to show her that he liked her, but eventually Sofia sees the shield he wears for her crumble down, and, like, you know, he broke down. Like, you could see, like, how much she was, like, obsessed with her, like, already, and, like, definitely was more than what he anticipated, you know? Like, he was not expecting to fall in love with his wife, you know? Like, it was just gonna be like a business arrangement, you know, and he would, you know, probably go and take his pleasures elsewhere. And then also, like, I loved the sexual dynamic with these two, because he opened her up to different things like he wanted to try with her, and he didn't, like, treat her with kid gloves. Like, you know, he obviously knew the problems that she had, and if she needed help, like, if she needed any help, that he would help her, but he didn't want to go and baby her either, you know? Like, that's the thing, like, when you are disabled, you don't want to be treated like a baby, but you also, you know, you have to admit, like, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that type of thing? You know, like, for me, I would say, in a way, I am disabled because I was born with my feet all messed up, and I still have issues from that, you know, even though I had, like, a corrective surgery, but it was more of, like, experimental, because my orthopedic surgeon had told me that the case of, like, my feet were, like, kind of like a clubbed foot. It was the most severe case he's ever seen, you know? So my feet were pretty much like, he was doing a guinea pig surgery for me with my feet. And I have, like, right now I have it to where I do have issues with my feet being sore. Like, sometimes I feel like it's arthritic, you know, in my feet. Some days I have that. And then there's other days, like, if I do, like, any kind of, like, walking, now it's harder for me to walk. So I'm having to find other things I have to do for exercise, so that way I can try to lose weight. And walking, I can't do a bunch of walking anymore because it hurts my feet too much. And I have it to where my feet are, I have, like, a plantar fasciitis, and that's causing me to have a lot of pain in my heels. So it, you know, it doesn't help that I was born with my feet all kind of like clubfoot, but also, you know, with the plantar fasciitis too. So yeah, for me, it's like, you know, it could be difficult to be in a situation where I'm like, I have to ask for help. I have to say, hey, can can you drive me to this place? I can't walk there. There are days I'm limping, or like say I'm tripping over my own feet. Like I have very shitty balance, you know, because I have very narrow feet. And so I kind of like tend to trip over my feet, or you know, almost lose my balance, and I have to like correct myself. So so for me, you know, it just, I understood where she was coming from, where she didn't want to feel like she was weak, but also she had to admit on days when it's like she was in pain. And so there would be some days where her legs and her hips would be in a lot of pain. And also I loved the fact that like she didn't get a lot of attention from her parents. Like they didn't want to take her like to like medical doctors. And when she had gotten that diagnosis, her father had the doctors burn the records. So when Mateo had taken her to the hospital and was like, here, let's do the testing and all that stuff, get her like the treatment she's going to need, let's go and get her a more upgraded wheelchair, because the wheelchair she was in was something that basically like her and her sister like had stole from a medical supply place because she really needed it, because her father did not want to get her a fucking wheelchair. So the fact that Mateo had got her like a specialized wheelchair, got her to where there were days that she would be in like, it was called something else, but it's basically a walker that has like a little seat, so you can walk, but then when you get tired, you could sit down, you know? So that's basically what she had. I loved how he took care of her, you know, made sure her needs were met, gave her like one of those like black credit cards where it's like, she could charge whatever she wanted, and she didn't want to charge a lot. And he was like, you would charge more, you know. Just like, I loved the fact that he was like, wanted to take care of her and took a better care job of her than her own fucking family, you know. The only one who was there for her that took care of her was her sister, you know. And so I loved seeing their relationship, and then like I said, seeing them evolve into like this sexual relationship, and him doing different things with her, like BDSM relationship and different things that he wanted her to do sexually that she was okay with, you know, and that was like experimental for them. And he did these things, so he kind of like, you know, it was one thing of like that kind of like got him off a little bit better. But I appreciated that, like he didn't like want to go and treat her with kid gloves, but he also like wanted to make sure she wasn't in pain and wasn't like hurt and different things like that either. So I liked that. I thought it was really good. I thought it was a really good book. I definitely want to go and read the second book in that series. But yeah, that's it for this video here. I'm sorry this is so long, but yeah, I read a lot of books this month. There was a lot of books I did end up getting through this month. I had a good reading month. I'm afraid like September I might not read so much. I think some months are like I read a lot, and then there's other months that I'm not able to read as much. So, you know, some months are good and some months are bad. It all depends. Like sometimes maybe I overread or something. I know of like maybe like September I may not read as much because now my children are like in school, and so I have to get up earlier, and then it gets to a point during the day where I have to take a nap because I'm like, I am freaking tired, you know? So that's the good thing about being a stay-at-home mom is like when your kids are in school and you're not having to run errands, you could actually take a nap, you know? So that's pretty much what I do, is I'm either filming videos when my kids are in school, or I'm laying down in my bed taking like an hour or two nap, you know, just so I'm not so tired. Yes, because when it hits like 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, I'm fucking tired. I'm done, son, and I need to go to sleep. So I may not have a lot of time in September to read a lot of books. It depends, like, you know, on the days, you know. Over the weekends, I may have like more time to read, but on the weekdays, it kind of makes it a little bit harder because I'm helping my kids with their homework if they have any homework and they need help with it. you know, doing other things around my apartment, you know, feeding them, cooking, cleaning them after they toss their clothes on the floor and they don't want to pick them up. So school days can be busy days, and they can be very tiring where I can't really read a lot. Like right now I'm reading this one book that I'll talk about obviously in September. And that one there, I'm like, I like it. I like the banter between the characters. But I can't read it for that long. And I'm reading it on my Kindle, and I'm sitting there and I'm starting to fall asleep, and I'm banging myself in the face with my Kindle. And so I'm like, I end up waking myself up, and I'm like, okay, let me try to read more. And I'm like, hit myself again. And I'm like, okay, it's time for bed. Time for bed, Brandy. Put the Kindle away. You need sleep. So that's basically what basically happens, you know, is that I'm falling asleep maybe a few pages in, so I'm not able to read a lot, you know. And then during the day, like I said, I'm like trying to get like a nap or two in, you know, or at least a nap in, and try to sleep like for like a couple hours, few hours, so that way I don't feel so tired by the evening time. So and then I'm trying to do like more exercises throughout the day to try to like get myself, because like I said, I can't do a lot of walking. So I was like, well, I could go to the beach, so the beach is not that far away from me, and I could go and ride my bike down the Strand and see about if I can lose weight that way, and go from there. So with my feet the way they are right now, I can't do like a whole ton of walking, even though I have to walk home today with my daughter for school. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how I do in September, how that, you know, how that month will be. But I read a lot this month in August. I really kind of like, I did a lot of books, like different books I did for like different vlogs. Like there's going to be a vlog coming out in September that's going to be a historical author. And then I got my other vlog that'll be coming out in October. That'll be my Sookie Stackhouse series. So yeah, there's going to be still continuing to do my vlogs every month. I try to like film at least 1 or 2 months ahead of time, so that way it's easier for me to have them already done when that month comes up and everything like that. It just makes things so much easier, because it's time consuming. You know, you do these clips, you go and you listen to the book or you read the book, it takes time. So that's why I said like there was only so many books that I was going to talk about this month, because of some of the books that I ended up listening to or reading are for vlogs. So yeah, that's it for this video here. Have yourselves a good day. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to each other. And I'll see you all on the next video. All right. Bye.